because it's very, very, very scary to me.
Well, so for those of you that just joined, we just hit live. We're just talking about dadhood and all the great things about being a dad. Rory is a brand new dad. So congratulations to him.
Thanks, man.
He's been burning the candle on both ends for the last few weeks.
It's quite the life change. Good way. But hey, a few less brain cells, a few less hours of sleep. But sometimes that works. Sometimes that works for Midjourney creativity, and sometimes that works for just overall different thought patterns. But hey, some days I'm delirious, some days I'm with it. It's just it's a mixed bag now.
You've always been a weird proponent in terms of parameters, so I think this only skews your prompts into being even more weird. So I think it's a good combo, honestly.
Dude, some of the stuff are either like super late night, sitting up there like 3 a.m. and it's just like what's coming out of my brain. I'm like, I might as well put this into Midjourney, see what happens. I got some real weird stuff. So
absolutely
need a place to share it.
Well, hey, everybody that's joining us, welcome. We'll jump right in. As usual, my name is Drew Brucker. I'm with my buddy in crime, Rory Flynn. I mean, we have a blast on these things, and we're glad that you guys enjoy them. We're going to talk through some of the big updates that have happened with Midjourney in the last few weeks. It was a little bit quiet for a while, and now we're right back on the highway, dude. We're right back on the highway. Things are moving fast. They're coming at you pretty quick. And, the only way to really understand these things is really just keep experimenting and play with them. So we're going to kind of talk through some of those things. There have been some changes on the website as well. So we're going to start this off with going through some of the latest news first, some of those quick hitters of what's changed, what's been updated, what's been released. And then from there, we're going to shift right into some deeper topics. We're also going to answer your questions. So we'll do some AMA. We'll try to sprinkle that in throughout. But if we don't get to it while we're going through it, we'll get to that at the later part of this. We've got a lot to talk about today. A lot to talk about. So let's jump in. I'm just going to kind of breeze through, these latest updates. And while I'm doing that, guys, drop in the comments where you're dialing in from, where you're logging in from. We would love to just kind of hear where you're joining us. And then, just kind of give us an update too with anything that you're seeing in terms of your Midjourney experience as you're going through this as well, because we like to sort of, really understand the greater perspective. So without further ado, let's just kind of jump into the news. Biggest one, obviously, is sort of the early version of model personalization is now live. Tons of information on that we'll go through today. Pan and zoom are now one tool, right? So if you knew pan and zoom, now it's called reframe, right? So, stay up to date. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind. Another change is remix. I think a lot of people were really concerned about, hey, did remix disappear because we don't see it? Well, I know Meg Ball was really concerned about that. And I know Spirit was concerned about that because there's heavy users on remix. But that is basically shifted, right? That now is in the edit prompt feature, which is buried into reframe. So it just says edit prompt now. Vary region has now changed names as well. It is now called repaint. And then a couple other real things, quick things that moved around were, error messages. You used to have to hover over those things of why a prompt didn't run. Now it just tells you without having to hover, which is great. The whole rank images and rank ideas part of Midjourney's website is now under the tasks page. So it's just one level deeper. And then one other update, just listening into office hours yesterday with Midjourney, they're doing their final training run on what they're, I think, going to call D6.5 instead of 6.1. The reason is just because they're thinking there's going to be, it's going to be a dramatic enough difference in terms of what's happening that it deserves to be called a 5 instead of a 1. So that may actually include updates to personalization on top of that as well, which is pretty interesting. So those are the quick hitters. We're going to probably show our screens a little bit too, so we can kind of point out where some of these things are, what it looks like now. Rory, give me first thoughts, comments on any of the updates that we just talked about?
It's always like they have like this pattern, right? Like I've noticed this pattern with them where whenever you see them working on the website for a while, they're going to release something fairly substantial because it feels like whenever they're, or at least since the website's been available, it's like, oh, if you go to any office hours, you go to read any of the documentation, it's always like, oh, we're working on the website for this, we're working on the website for that. It's like, okay, so normally it's like website gets worked on, then it's like, here's our big release. Feels like they work on different things in tandem and then kind of release them all together. So I would say a lot of this stuff is probably gearing up. I mean, I still don't understand why. I think there's still, this is the weird one to me is that granted, there's our Discord lovers out there. I still like using it for some things, but I use this site almost pretty much, exclusively now. It's just like, why is there still 100 image limit? Like, what's the point of that? I don't get it. Like, if people
I
want to
think we
use the
talked
site,
about that
use the
last
site.
time too,
I know.
right?
I still don't get it. It's like, release it. Like, what's the big deal? I think they're still trying. I think, because they are probably the most active Discord channel, they don't want to like just totally leave Discord like high and dry. So maybe that's why there's some sort of partnership or something there. They feel obligated. I don't know what it is, but yeah, dude, it's between style codes and the personalization and the website changes and all this stuff, it's kind of like, I was like scratching my head for a couple weeks there, like, what are they doing? Because it's been like a month. So now we're back at it. Now, of course, this will come out, then 6.5 will come out, then something revolutionary will come out, then 3D, then video. It'll all probably happen fairly explosively over the next couple months. But hey, I like it. I like the stuff. Style codes. I have to highlight and call myself out on this one too. For when it first came out, I was like, this is kind of pointless. And then once I started playing around with it, I was like, I'm wrong. So
I had that immediate jerk, like my immediate jerk reaction to style codes too, like, or style random. The idea of is like, why would I want to do random? I know what I like. Why am I wasting time? And then you dig in and it's like, wow, this is pretty incredible in terms of, the uniqueness to the images. And then just that organic connective tissue of building consistency across images, different kinds of images without having to worry about prompting exactly right. So like sort of building on style reference in that way.
I think it's what's different here, and this is me getting very philosophical, right? Like Midjourney's always kind of been about the community, right? Like everything they've done has always seemed to be like somewhat communal in nature. It's been less about let's just go and build like the fastest product to market and let's just monetize. This one, I didn't expect the sharing potential of it, but if you go on Twitter, you go on LinkedIn, everything is here's my style code, and everyone's sharing them, and it's like, okay, maybe that wasn't the intended purpose, but it's created like this communal aspect again, where we can all share and collaborate and build with each other. So again, like I don't know if that was the purposeful intention, but it's good and it's fun. And now we see how, we've been utilizing it, mixing and mashing and getting creative with it. So yeah, I think that's that one's been definitely, it's like had a meteoric rise. It's I still feel like it had a slow burn to begin with, and then it was like, okay, now it's taken off. So
yes.
It's fun.
I think that's kind of, there is somewhat of a pattern to that as well. I feel like when they launch a feature, like everybody's reaction is, oh, hell yeah, this is exciting. And then you have this moment where it's like, well, this isn't really that great because it's early and like there's still some flaws here. But then when you get sort of this collective mind hive, I would just say, of like people from Twitter or LinkedIn or people you talk to, like me and you discussing it, like you start to unlock different ways to think about it and different perspectives of how to use it. And so I think like it's sort of interesting how that happens because Midjourney's product releases, and update release are they're just so different. Right. And it's almost like here's a breadcrumb. And I want you to figure out like how you're going to use this crumb to design the rest of the cookie. You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to make this? How are you going to utilize it? And so it leaves some room for interpretation. And that's sort of been my takeaway with a lot of these feature updates that I've seen.
First brand, I don't know any other brand in history that allows the PR to be done by the community, right? Like there's no controlling of the message ever. It's the craziest thing. I don't get it. It's awesome though. It's a great strategy because it's just like, here's this little feature that we created. It's live. Nothing else. That's it. And it's just like, let everyone else go take it and run with it in their own direction. You could have people that are like, this sucks. Like, or you could have people like, this is the best thing ever. it doesn't matter to them. They just keep building, which I like. It's very
Yeah.
it's very unique and different. It's like let the community take over, market it for them, and then everyone else will figure. Because I personally don't think they are like they're either one, their ego isn't high enough to tell people how to use, or like big enough to tell people how to use this stuff. It's just like, here's a tool, get creative, figure it
Yep.
out,
Yep.
and then like we come up with random ways to go and utilize it and mold it and manipulate it and share it, and then it turns into something totally different. So, it's like rooms, for example, right? Like they probably had just done this for shared spaces, right? For people to collaborate together. Super cool. But also, for any of the fans, there's a little tip for anyone out there who used to be Discord like fans in terms of organization. Like, oh, I like my own private channels for projects that I'm working on. I want to separate this stuff out. You can go create a private room now and just operate that like a channel. So it's like you can just do your projects in different rooms and keep creating like that. So again, probably not their intended use, but for us, we're getting creative with it. So
let's use this as a good segue to talk about rooms. I don't feel like enough people are talking about it. This is, I think, another like really big transition feature from Discord, right? Because a lot of people didn't really know how to maximize Discord, but the potential to go into a channel on Discord or a room in Midjourney is powerful. And it's even more powerful now because, if you set up sort of like a private room, well, you could do this in a public room too, but you and I have, created a private room, right? Where we've just sort of, hey, let's start with an idea and then let's just go down this rabbit hole, right? And it's super, super interesting, right? Because you can riff on each other's prompts. I can very subtle or very strong one of Rory's images. I can use it as an image weight. He can do the same for mine. Like we can take a style reference from one of the photos and build on it. And then obviously just the ideation and iteration value of doing that, especially if you're using it, I would say, in a professional manner, right? So if you're part of a creative team or a design team or a marketing team, to be able to have a common space with people that you work alongside, and maybe you're potentially working on the same or a similar project. No brainer.
Totally. I think Craig asked the question, rooms as a nice workaround for small team to collaborate, or am I not thinking about the right way? Perfect way to think about it. Small teams can collaborate either just as a team in general, if you want like a general channel, or if you have certain projects you're working on, you can separate it that way. It's a really good space, like Drew said. Like we did it the first time together, and I think an hour and a half went by in like 10 minutes, and we're like, what the hell? And we only did like one concept. We didn't even go down the rabbit hole. We just kept doing one thing. So it's cool because, like, again, token wise, Drew uses totally different stuff than I do. Like thought process wise, like, oh, let's jump this one in as a SREF or an image prompt, and then like play with the weights. So you see stuff, you pick stuff up from other people. It's really interesting. I know I've picked up certain things from him where I was like, oh, that's a cool thought process of how to like visualize getting my prompt to the end result, right? Where I might have thought about it a different way and gone way down the rabbit hole to do something else when Drew just did something super simple. And I was like, that's smart. That's a good way to do it. So that's the value. It's this shared like osmosis of taking everything in and like, oh, okay, like let's maneuver. So, even just looking at some of the I realize I don't vary subtle, very, very strong that often. I should probably do that more often.
Really?
Yeah, I'm just like, I like this image. I'm going to keep going with it. Either it's a remix or I'll use it as an image prompt or an SREF.
See, that again, right? Like,
yeah,
and I think I just put something out about how I think a lot of people that I talk to aren't going far enough with an initial prompt, right? They're not very strong. They're not very subtling. They're not re-rolling. They're not re-rolling the subtle or the strong. They're not remixing, right? Like, so it's fascinating because we all have our own workflows, and there are all these, we talk about this all the time, but there are all these micro decisions that you can make to go down different paths. So,
totally.
It's really worth exploring all the experimental options with that too. And, I think I've learned stuff from you just in that room in a short period of time. And so I think it's a great way to really just streamline some learning, right, with other people that are actively using the tool just as much as you are.
Yeah, like even like these are really micro things, right? Like looking at very subtle, very strong. I saw you doing that and like getting some really cool stuff off it. I'm like, I should do that more. Plus very subtle, very strong. Plus then remix, because at a certain point, sometimes I'm just like, I like this. Let me use chaos like 5, like just a little variation.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
you know, that's the same thought process, just a different tool. Same thing.
That's a great point.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, okay, we're thinking the same way, but we're going about it with the different tools. That's a good thing about staying on top of this stuff. It's because every new tool has a purpose, and there's like 50 ways to leverage each one of them. And I think some of the cool, like SREF, I was like into it for a really long time, and then like I kind of fell off it and was like trying to get back into multi-prompting and things like that. Then like it kind of came back with a vengeance. And I'm like, oh, I can do a lot more than I thought I could with it. And it's been like an obsession. Again, once you realize how it functions, and again, like what the decisions are between, should I use an image prompt? Should I use an SREF? Should I use a seed value? Should I use CREF? Whatever. It's all creative, and that's why the rooms is good to see all of it in action, so you get out of your own like standard thought pattern and process. So yeah, we're hyping up rooms. You heard it here.
Hyping it up. It deserves more love than it's getting right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
I am curious. So Rory and I were talking about this. If you guys have any interest in joining a private room with us in us creating one, I guess we want to know, is that interesting or intriguing to you? So if that is, like, drop a comment, say, I don't know, what do you want to say?
Get a room.
No, get a room. But like, let us know, because if that's valuable, I think that could be an awesome way to create like a smaller community that we can all learn from each other in. So drop a comment in there if that's something of interest to you, because we'll go through this afterwards, look at those comments, and then we can figure out who to be in touch with. So anything else on rooms before we pivot?
No, I think it's also good, like outside of your private rooms, if you want to go jump into one of the general rooms that Midjourney runs, like I'll say this in 5 seconds, like it's just fun. Like the only thing, one quick tip for it is if you go and generate in isolation, like if everyone's doing one thing and you just go generate another thing, like no one's going to interact with you. Like it's fun to just start interacting with someone who's already doing something, because you get the whole snowball effect. Then everyone starts to get in on it, and then it starts to become fun. Like then it's like, not saying that everyone has to do this to have fun, but I just try to learn stuff from people that I would never prompt like that. Like I would never think of that image or want to prompt that image, but trying to take it different directions makes people get into it. So that's just my little disclaimer on.
Okay,
on
we got about 20 comments on the room, so I think there's some interest there. That's awesome. So we'll think about how we're going to set that up. So what's going to happen to get a private room? We're going to need to send you a link, and then there's going to be a password in case you haven't done this before. So there's a link, you'll have to put in a password, and then you have access. Once you're in there, Rory, how about this? Let's make this a little visual too. No one wants to just see two talking heads all the time. Rory,
okay.
Pull up. Why don't you go ahead and share your screen? Pull up like the rooms that you and I have, just so we can kind of like point out some very quick things before we move on. I think that might be valuable.
All right, let me grab this thing real quick.
But yeah, so you'll just need a password to get in there. It'll tell people, who's in the room currently at that time. The other great thing about this is you've got sort of a chat on the side, but you also have a voice chat option, right? So I think that's super powerful. You can just talk in that way too.
Yeah. So right here in rooms, you can go into all these different ones, right? Like these are all ones that we've created, right? Like either you go into rooms, it'll have like your ones that are your general ones, daily themes, super users, general chaos. Those are Midjourney. It'll say owner official. That's them. Then these are the ones that we create. So, it's always like, I do one for style reference codes, right? Like this is a perfect example, right? For utilizing rooms in a very personal space. Like I'll go and generate, like if I just want to go do style random, I'll go generate it in this private room for myself of just style reference codes. Anything you generate in here is going to show up on your create page anyway, but this is a good way to organize it. So you can use smart folders. That's another way to do it. But in a sense, just one more anecdote on that if anyone wants to go heavy down the style code road. So Bash Brothers. Now I'm locked out again. Drew, what's the password? Classic on-screen snafu.
I think it's Brucker Flynn, if I remember correctly. All lowercase.
You guys get to see the
guys,
joys.
We're doing this live, obviously.
Joys of live stuff here. Oh, now I'm kicked out.
Oh, now you got to log in. Hey, well,
yeah.
Give
me 2 seconds here.
I'll keep that. So anyway, that is, I think, an awesome thing that I think we could drive community on private rooms are great. Like I said, voice chat capability is super interesting. One other side note on the style codes, I thought you just brought up a great point, not to move too far away from rooms, but you mentioned, creating a private room for style codes. I think that could be a super, super useful way to use that. The other way that I've done it is just, creating a folder and just dropping those in and naming the folder, right? So either of those two, I think, work. But as you start to play around with those codes, right, like it's easy to get lost in the sauce with all the stuff that you're generating.
Totally. So I mean, even you see here, it's like Drew and I are just going back and forth on stuff, and it looks either unique or the same. It looks, we're just pushing buttons at a certain point. Like, how do we take this and maximize it? It's only going to let me scroll up a little bit more, I think.
Yeah.
But we probably did this for 2 hours the other day, and then probably an hour and a half the other time before that. But again, this is the voice chat is fun. Get on there, just start to riff with it. How about we try this? How about we try that? Let's go down this path. Let's go down that path. Then you can also share images, comment on that. But it's super easy because you have access to everything that's being generated. So you click on an image. Drew did this one, right? Access to the prompt. You can do whatever you want here with it. So it's just like, again, you're just creating in the same space. No need to really go much further into that one. But yeah, it's cool. Like the other thing that's, I think, super, super useful with this is it does, like I said this before, but just to highlight it again, anything you create in here, and also as like a general tip, anything you create in here is going to go into your create page. So it'll show up. You'll see it after the fact, even if it's like, there's 10 people in here generating and it gets buried. If you like something that, someone has done that's not yours and you want to keep it, just do this and hit like upscale or something like that. Or, upscale subtle, right? So that this then image will go into your portfolio, and then also you can keep the prompt, right? So again, little things. If you like stuff, like, again, I know it's upscaling a few of Drew's things to keep like
there's some great ones in there. We got some really good ones in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just a little general tip on that. Oh crap. That
Love
was
it.
So yeah, I think that's that. And then also, style codes in here are great because it just gets shared, and then you just, plug them in as a prompt or plug them in. You just click the button. There you go. New style code. Everyone can share it. Everyone can save it. So
before last note before we get into, I guess, maybe model personalization, because we know that's going to be a deep hole, but the style codes, if you haven't played with those, spend plenty of time, generate your own, find others. I think, Rory and I have both shared some. You can, like I said, go on LinkedIn or Twitter, somewhere, and find some SREF codes too. But each one, right, has a little bit of a different aesthetic, maybe a different photography type that it's better for. Some are better for realism, some are better for illustration, some are better for, this and that. Kind of feels like a little bit like Style Tuner. I think you and I talked about that, Rory, at the beginning,
totally.
But definitely spend some time with that, and then playing around with that style weight component too, because that can really drive some interesting results. And so again, I think with any of these tools, including model personalization, which we'll get into, you have got to experiment and try. And what I mean by that is run different stylization values. Run the same prompt with the stylization values using the seed. Run the same prompt using different aspect ratios, because you get different images based on the ratio, because the aspect ratios were trained based on images that were in that format, right? So that's why, landscape photos, that 16:9 are great for, landscapes, wide angle shots. But sometimes if you're trying to, get a person in there, it might kind of skew the face, right? That's just the reality of the tech as it stands right now. But you ran that same prompt in a 4:5 or a 3:4 or 2:3 or 1:1 or 9:16, you get totally different results. So you need to play with all those things to really understand what the best use case is for each, right? Because some have different values. And I think model personalization only changes that more. So maybe let's just kind of jump into that, right? Like, what is model personalization? If you're not familiar with it, well, essentially what it is Midjourney is taking information and data based on images that you've liked on the Explore page, as well as the rated images when you're rating images between A or B. And I think the rating images part is preferably stronger right now than the explore page based on the Midjourney office hours call. So that's why it's important to get in there, rate images. It's not so much about one individual image that you rate. It's not so much about the image itself to a T. The way that it's sort of been explained is the model is sort of trying to figure out why you chose this one over this one. It's not necessarily that, hey, you liked everything about this photo. It's like these pieces of that were important. And then it assesses those differences and variations and variables, I guess, rather, over time. Right. And so in order to use model personalization right now, I think you need to have 200 or so
200
images, right, that you've either rated or liked. Not a big bar, but obviously I would say, the more you have, the more strong and concrete your personalization will be. So that's what it is. How do you use it? All you got to do is type --P at the end of your prompt. Boom, you got it. Now, with that said, right, there are some more complex components to this. And what I mean by that is what Rory and I may use, or you may use, in terms of a style weight or stylization value, rather, on Midjourney's aesthetic versus your model, totally different. I'm thinking so far.
Yeah.
Rory, have you seen that same thing? Like I'm ramping up the stylize value to, I think right now, and I don't know if this is best practice, but 1,000, because the way I understand it is that's fully utilizing my personalization.
Yeah.
And so I want to experiment with that, right, and see what that is, versus if we're just using Midjourney's default model or aesthetic, you and I typically, we stylize, I would say most of the time, 250 and under. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally. That's the weird thing. And I'll be quite honest with everyone. I tested it a bunch yesterday, and I think this is very confusing on their part because I was looking for them to release some sort of personal style weight like they've done with every other parameter that they've added like that. Because I was like, wait, does it add more style, like the normal stylized? Does it add like that? Because the difference between style 0 and style 1,000, massive, right? Like on any like normal image. On personalized image, to me, it's not that crazy. It's not that big of a difference. At least maybe my prompts maybe weren't that great when I tested it. But let me see if I can find this real quick. I ran this experiment even with a seed just to see how different it actually was. And if I can find this in my create page, I'll show everyone that I ran it on a few prompts to see like how different it would be. All right, here, let's see. This is actually a good example. I think I did 0 through 1,000.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's see. So share screen. Here we go. Back and forth, guys. Thanks for hanging with us on that. All right. So like here, basically I just created like a standard prompt, just some prompt that I've used a million times before, right? I used the seed value from it, stylized 0, and then here's your personalization code. If you want to do it right, basically all you have to do is, add your prompt in --P, enter, and it'll generate this code, right? So you can utilize this if you want to add this to any prompt. Pretty simple. You just click this right here. It'll add to the backend. So that being said, right, 0 means it's off. So this is what Midjourney would have produced regardless, right? Regardless of what, the personalization is. So 0, not going to have any personalization to it. It's going to be the default. So then we just started jacking up the stylize, right? Like we get a little bit different here. Of course, not too crazy. We get a little bit different here at 400. We get a little bit different here at 600. Get a little different at 800, and then at 1,000. So really, to me, it wasn't, even if you look at these images, right, which are built off the same seed, like it's not that crazy going up in value. Same thing here. Maybe this image got the most different in terms of like just a different composition, different type of image. This one stayed probably the most consistent between 200 and 1,000. So it's not necessarily the same as if you did stylize 0 and stylize 1,000. Right, like where that would be like basically like a minimalistic photo to like some sort of like action movie scene.
Yes, that's a great point. It's a different. There's a different threshold, even though it's the same value spectrum.
Yes. So that was interesting, but there's some other stuff, and maybe I'll have to pull up something else where the model personalization, like you can really. I've seen some. I'm going to be quite honest. I've seen some people's personalization where I'm like, looks fairly similar, doesn't look that crazy. Maybe it's the prompt, maybe it's something else. Mine tends to look fairly different. So I don't know if I'm happy about that or sad about it or excited about it. It's just I know it looks different, right, than what most of the defaults are. So I did some of these even the other day just to show people how different it can be, like the default versus just adding this one parameter. Let me do this real quick.
Mine definitely feel more cinematic. They feel like they've got a little. They definitely lean more toward photorealism, for sure. They look like realer images. The poses are a little bit different. However,
Totally.
I have noticed like some negative things too. Like I've got when I use personalization right now, a lot of my composition is just somebody standing right in the middle, and it's just
Right
like,
on.
dude,
Right.
stop. You know,
Yeah.
like I'm looking for interesting angles. I'm looking for this and that and the other. So like there are going to be things like that where it's just like maybe you got a prompt around it, right? But
Probably lower on the style weight, right? Like probably under the default 100, right? So probably between 0 and 100. Same way with SREF if you like some of it but don't want all of it, you know? So again, I
yes,
saw the same thing. If you want a perfect example of it, you look at this, right? We have sideways, side profile of the face, the personalized style straight on. Looks more like something that I would prompt, but at the same time, different. Same thing here. Perfectly symmetrical, straight on, looking at the camera. This one's side profile. Same thing here, a little bit more of a profile shot. This one's kind of straight on. Even on this one was to me the most like, okay, this is what you even saw it in the prompt before, right? Like this is Midjourney's default. This is more of like my aesthetic. So, yeah, totally get that. I think we're gonna have to play around with the style weight a lot on
yeah.
this, and of
So you
course
might be
it'll
seeing this similar thing then, which is interesting because I know you and I both love creative angles. You know what
and
I mean?
composition. Yeah,
Different like unique compositions or just things that stand out, right? So um I guess if there's any sort of immediate challenge with that, if you're experiencing that as you go into personalization, add some composition keywords tokens or add some camera angle tokens, things like that, because you might have to specify it if you're going to use the personalization. One other, I guess, shortcut, if you don't want to go about it that way, is you can reframe the image and maybe turn the image from like a 1-1 into a 3-2, and then use that pan feature where it starts or ends, right, to build in that negative space, and then convert it back to that original aspect ratio if you wanted to. But like that's another thing I've been playing around with if I didn't quite get there and I don't have the patience to go back and keep playing with it. So
which was interesting with 5.2 and 5. It was very symmetrical. Like
it
everything was
was.
default was symmetrical, and then 6 came out and it was like,
6 was
oh, it's
different.
getting a little asymmetrical. Like this is cool, thank you. And now we're going back again. Also, I just saw a question from Glenn. Give me 2 seconds, Glenn. I'll do the seed in alpha. It's actually easier than Discord.
Super
Um,
super easy.
yeah, this is just a quick tip for everyone if they want to find this too
While
before
you're
we
bringing
forget.
that up too, somebody else asked, please expand on style weights in alpha. We can get to that at the end here. That's not a problem. That's an easy one we can just talk about. Let me see if I got anything else. Somebody asked, you can't use style image or image weights in alpha, right? Yes, you can. I think somebody
Yeah, you
answered
can.
for us.
Yeah. So
Okay. Yeah, I think that's what we got.
Glenn, here we go. You click into the image, right? Or yeah, I think you can probably do this from outside too, but just to show you, you can hit this drop down button, copy, and then seed. And then it'll give you here, you have to copy this. Okay, then you go to, Land Rover. Seed is the parameter, paste. Just like that. So simple, easy. I personally, I definitely underutilize seed. If people utilize it a lot, I'm not one of those people. But when I want to see different, like something like this, like the difference between the style weights, like it's perfect for that. To really see how it generates image over image over image with the little subtle changes. So that's one thing. Do we need to hit on
Yeah.
image weight for this?
Yeah, do this one really quick. Is there CREF and alpha? Yes. Just drop
Yes.
a quick image. We can show you this really quick.
So if you want to use it here, right, like you just click on use image, you can either upload here, upload an image and use it that way, or you can use image here. You just have to hover over this thing and hit the person. This little person here, that makes it CREF. Or if you wanted to, do I have a person here real quick? all right, let's just say this person, right? You want to copy, if you want to do it the manual way, image URL, right? I just go, woman cref, paste the link, and it'll do it automatically. So there's two ways you can do it. Either way, it'll work, but also just make sure that this person's clicked off. Also, if you hold shift, you can make that a style reference too. So it'll be combined cref and style ref. If you hit shift again, it'll be all three. If you want to just click those off, right, then it goes back. So just, make a note of that one. Pretty simple, but hopefully that made sense.
Yeah. We have a question about personalization. It worries me to engage personalization while still experimenting before locking in a unique style. What are your thoughts? I think it's going to depend on one, how many images you've rated. Like if you're on the lower threshold of that, if you're just over 2, I think potentially, right? Like rating 100 images in a day, like could have a big effect, just based on, the percentage of how much that's changed for you versus maybe someone like me who I'm rating images every day. I think I was just checking today. I think it's like something stupid like 16,000, and that, by the way, that is just from V6 on. Okay. So that's also important to note. Those rated images are only from V6 on. So to build that up, and you can find that out in Discord. That's the only way to find it out right now. You just go into Discord, you type /info, and it's going to give you things like, right, how many images you've generated in total, but it'll also give you how many images you've rated as well. So if you're curious about that, that's how you can access it. One other thing on this, right? Like Midjourney has come out and said, especially on office hours yesterday, this is early in the personalization. They're going to make changes to this, just like they do with all the things, right? So this is think of it as a beta. Think of it as it's only going to get better from here. One other interesting thing that they brought up was, the preferences that or the bias that we may all have. And so like they're talking about doing some qualitative analysis through surveys, like a demographic survey and a psychoactive survey to drill into, hey, where are you from? Like some of the things that you like, dislike, it's an optional thing, right? But that is going to dial things in further, right? And V7, they even said, is probably going to be built off the back of personalization. It's going to be less about what everybody or the majority likes in terms of the aesthetic and more about what you individually like as the aesthetic. And I think that makes it different. Just one of many things makes it different than any other AI image gen tool out there. Personalized, right? Like personalized models for you. Unless I'm missing something, I'm sure there are some ways to personalize it, but I think in terms of like the model itself and not using all these different variables, like parameters, I think is super fascinating, right? Because they've sort of taken that approach as a way to move forward rather than just focusing on how much better can we get with quality, right? Like at some point, it's enough, right? And then it just becomes more about what you as an individual prefer and use it for.
Yeah, this is this also leads to a couple interesting points, and I will be, straw man a little bit on this feature because there's a few things that I like, a few things that I don't. Right, number one, this to me, like as a tip for if you're going to go rate images, do it intentionally. So know that whatever you rate is going to probably affect how your prompts get, generated. So if you're someone who likes only artistic prompts and only likes animation and things like that, don't go and rate a bunch of photorealistic images because you can just skip those. So meaning like don't, if you want photorealistic stuff, don't go rate a bunch of artistic looking stuff because I think that's going to affect you, right? So really think about when you're rating which images you actually really like, not just doing it to get the end result of, oh, I did like 300 images today, great, now I can do my now I can get my personalized style. So do it intentionally. The other thing that I don't, the one thing, and again, second Meg Ball shout out here was, Style Tuner was great because you could create different styles. So you had like a catalog of different styles. Like maybe I'm not feeling like I want to prompt like myself today. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to put my own style on it. Or I'm trying to do it for someone that's totally different. If you're trying to use this professionally, it's like every client has a different look. I'm wondering how it's going to develop there, because the one thing they did say is that it's not going to be like a static tool. So your style code now is not your style code that it will be in 3 months. If you keep rating images, it's going to evolve and grow with it. So, it's are we going to have separate ones? Or are we going to have to be able to have multiple? I think that's going to be interesting because, they'll definitely listen to the community. Again, I think they still think that people aren't using this stuff in any sort of professional sense, like it's only for fun. I mean, if they think that, then they're kind of kind of crazy. But like I said, where does that actually end up, and how can we then utilize it? Because I like my style, but every once in a while, I feel like I got to change it up. I got to switch it up. Stuff looks the same as it always does, right?
Yes.
So that's my straw man on the feature, which I already like, but still.
I do too, right? And it just dropped, right? So no one here is an expert. Like
Yeah.
we've done some initial testing on it. It's going to be a different experience for everybody, but do test it, right? And so Kimberly asked, does personalization only get used when you use the --p parameter in the prompt? It's either if you put that in there, or you go up to your settings, in your create box, and you change personalization on to default. So there's a tab in there. I would say right now, like I was thinking, let me just use this as the default, but then I realized I can't prompt without using it if I've got it turned on as the default. Does that make sense? Right? Because, I'm trying to think of a good example of that. Like style raw, right? I use that as a default. So that way, like if I don't, well, no, that's not a good example. Help me out with this. I'm trying to think of like a way that the default doesn't, I guess, have that downside to it. Because I guess what I realized is I can't prompt using Midjourney's stylize value if I've got it set as the default. It's still going to put it in there. It's not like I can put no P. I got to turn it off. And so I would say if it's early and you're experimenting with this, which we all are, I would say leave it off the default and always add it. That way you can compare without, just kind of tripping up over your own feet.
Yeah, I think that's probably the easiest way at this point to see what the difference is. Some people's differences are, here's the thing. Some people's are going to be very subtle in terms of their personalization versus others. Like mine looks somewhat radically different. Maybe it's probably just based on what I select on the rating images. Cause I don't do any of to be quite honest, you'll see about it, a lot of stuff on the rate images. There's, the art style stuff. I just go right through it. I like prompting for, artistic, more illustrative styles, but I don't do it that often. So it's like I'm looking for very specific images that I like and don't like stock photography looking stuff. I just skip right through it. Like I don't want that. So it's again, I think it's intentional when it comes down to the rating process.
Let me give you like a devil's advocate on that. I'm just wondering if if I rate some artistic style images too, I mean, is the model, is it smart enough in the sense that where it's based on the prompt, right? So it's not necessarily factoring in that artistic component because it knows like when I'm rating images that are photorealism versus artistic. So maybe it's filling in this knowledge gap of these different niches of the types of images that you could create. So in other words, like maybe I'm building up that database of information algorithmically for architecture or for artistic styles, and it may not necessarily affect people. I don't know. Like, it's just a thought. I don't know that. It's just speculative, but
I like where your head's at. I mean, personally, like I said, I don't know how it could, I can't conceptualize how it, all I know is when they said it's going to affect your personal style. I was like, okay, well, I guess I got to do what I like then. Cause again, I've been on here. If everyone doesn't know, if you rate a bunch of images in a day till you get a free fast hour, I mean, hey, like on brand with the with the live name, right? Free fast hour, decent for just going through and clicking like or dislike for 5 minutes. So it's that's a quick win. But yeah, I'm excited about it because I think it's just so nice to have that taken into account so I don't have to prompt around it all the time. Like I feel like everything that we've done for a long time is like, how do we break the default for it to be different? So it looks like it's different. And now it's like, well, now here's your one style. You are different. And now it's like, well, do I want to go back? Do I want to go back to the old way? It's very, very like ebb and flow with the way things develop with them. So, but I'm curious. I mean, like, has anyone tried anyone else's? Like, I haven't. I've seen people sharing it. I personally haven't used anyone else's yet. I'm interested now to see how that looks different too. Like, if I did yours, how different would it come out than mine? another interesting thing about this communal aspect, right? Like we used to share style codes for tuner. Now we can do this. Very, very. I'm sure people will find some way to monetize that. They'll be like, here's a tuned model for a tuned
Right.
personalization for X.
Hey, I'm
Right?
auctioning off. I'm auctioning off the personalization code, highest bidder.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it is curious. Like, I am curious. So if you don't know what we're talking about, right? Like --p is all you need to type in, but you'll notice when you go to review, right, your grid of images that generate, you'll see a specific code to you. That's your personalization code. And what Rory's talking about is, some people have shared theirs, right? So you could essentially put --p and then their code and then get their sort of results based on their model personalization. So that's all we're talking about there. Hey, we've got 15 minutes left. Great time to drop any questions. Are you struggling with something? Are you looking for advice on something? Like, is there any best practice that you've learned that you want to share with other people? Like, we view this as a community. So, we're happy to share. We would love for you to share if you've got anything that you want to drop on us as well. While we're doing that, Rory, the only other thing I can think of is maybe like pull up that rate ideas thing that we were talking about. Because I know we got some questions and we always talk about this. Where is it headed? Where is Midjourney headed? Where are we going next? 3D is ahead of video. They've already talked about 3D in a lot of ways. It's going to happen, I think, at some point this year, right? We've got 6 months left. And I think also part of that, with, go ahead.
Sorry, I thought I lost you for a second. My internet glitched out. But there's a quick question from Sonia. She said she was looking to see where she can find, I think, the ranking situation. If you're on the alpha site, if you click on tasks, rank images, right, it'll give you your ranking count right here of how much you've done. So you can go in here and check how much. You can also do it on Discord if you just type info, /info, press enter. You'll get the number. So if not, you just have to go and do this, right, and just go through these things. Like, okay, I like this one, right? Like this one to me, I might not like either of these images. Like to me, this isn't doing anything for me. Skip. I get to here. Maybe this isn't doing anything for me. Skip. Right? Like maybe I like this one.
Wait, you're not using the hotkeys, man. I'm only using 1, 2, and 3. So you press 1, you like the image on the left, 2, image right, 3, skip.
This up here, super helpful if you're going to go into a hole doing it. But yeah, I think that's just one quick tip on this. So let's go back to task and then rate ideas. Again, we've probably mentioned this a few times, guys, but if you can go and submit your ideas of things you want, features you want in Midjourney, and then the whole community will vote on it, right? Or if you want to rank ideas, they'll give you a generated set. You assign value or points to it. Like, do we want to improve coherence? Do we want more long-term consistency with seeds? Do we want video generation, right? You can go and assign points, and then you can see the leaderboard. So you can see what the community wants here. This is what probably they're going to do. So generate multiple angles of the same subject. That's either a character reference or 3D, right? Like, so you can go in there and generate whatever shot you want. Improve hands and fingers. They're working on it. Upload and manipulate your own images, right? How do you build avatars? Things like that. More accurate prompt understanding. Multiple consistent characters in an image. It's all there. Everyone wants it. They know it. They actually have data. So it's like market research on your own community consistently.
Rory, what's that top one again?
Generate multiple angles of the same subject.
So we were just talking about 3D, right?
Yep.
So, Matt, we've talked about this a lot, but in case you haven't heard us talk about it, it's the idea that, hey, we generate a cool image and we can basically step inside the scene and we can manipulate it as if we're the cameraman behind it, right? And can shift to a side view, over top, below, pan to the side, right? But keeping everything in a flow or an environment, like a micro environment, which is fascinating to think about.
I love it. Personally, I think it's so cool. I mean, if you could generate anything you wanted, you basically build your own world, right?
Your own world,
and then keep going from there. It's super cool. One tip before I forget, because we talked about style codes a lot in this. There's one interesting test that I've been obsessed with lately is running on the style versions. So instead of just your standard default style version, like for your style code, go run it in SV1, SV2, SV3, SV4. See how different they are. they're pretty different, but they come up some really cool aesthetics. Like
Interesting.
SV2 has been having some really good results for me on that. And
Dude, thank you for keeping past versions alive, because
yeah,
I don't and you do, and
always.
I think it's awesome. Yeah, I like once 6 drops, I'm on 6. I don't go back, but I think it's awesome, right? Because they all have strengths. You know, like remember V5 and what was it? Did they have a 1? I know they had a 2. They have a 1,
The
2.
V5.1, V5.2.
Hard to even remember now, but like even those 5, 5, 1, 5, 2 were good at different things,
Yeah.
right? And so I think that's a fascinating idea.
Because then even if you want to go back and let's say you love style tune, right? You go back in 5.2, you generate some styles that you like, you come back into V6, and then you use them as SREFs. It's going to give you the same look. So you can, it's like how you manipulate the tool to get to what you want, right? So that
Yeah,
always, I like, the style version. I think that was like one of the most under appreciated updates. Like it was just kind of like here and gone. No one used it. Now I'm doing it with the SREFs and the style codes a lot because it gives you total unique, different aesthetics and looks. So I would definitely suggest testing those out. Throw them in as a permutation at the end of your prompt. See what happens. Super
yeah.
cool. So that's
Andres asked, "How can we make better hands, Rory?"
what's really interesting is if you use image prompts as you could do this on Discord very easily, but it's also sometimes you just need to vary region on the hands once or twice, or just like a subtle or not remix, very subtle, very strong. That'll fix the hands. You can use image prompts. You can use an image of a perfect hand and put that as as when you're doing repaint now, as we like to call it, as an image prompt. That'll help. Also, like I've always found this is the weirdest observation of all time. The longer and more detailed my prompt is, the better the hands are. For whatever reason, like the shorter my prompt is, the weirder the features are
How
on
about
people. Like you get like the arm that's like this, like when,
that?
or like it's
Yeah,
like coming out the shoulder and some
yeah,
stuff like that. Yeah, Photoshop generative fill works too. That's a good point. But yeah, typically I'm just highlighting the hand. Honestly,
yep.
reframe,
Same.
just highlight it and reframe or
Re-
repaint.
repaint,
Repaint?
repaint.
Repaint.
There are several ways to do it. I think the model's good enough now where you just repaint over the section of where the hand's altered even, right? So like here's a perfect example. If I've got the hand like this, but there's a 6 finger here, I might just vary region this part right here because I've
Yeah.
already got the 5 fingers and it's already it already looks good, right? Or right, if I've got 4 things are spaced, then I might take the whole hand at the wrist or something like that. Like so think about what you're selecting, in terms of the pixels, but also think about what you're excluding from the selection because it's only got that space to work within, right? So if the proportion isn't big enough to put a hand in there or put in a hand in there in the way that you want, then you're not going to get the result that you want to. So not only thinking about what you're highlighting, but what you're not highlighting, I would say is a good tip too.
I think it's going to be a thing of the past soon. I mean, it's at the
Yeah,
top of the list on every radio. They've mentioned it every single office hours. That's like the main concern is fixing hands and feet. Um, it's also difficult body position. I think that's also really hard for them too. If anyone's tried to generate like dynamic, like either like sports or something like action photography, like it's always hard to get the body composition right. It's just really, body's a complicated thing. It's not, ask someone to go draw hands. Like even the best artists in the world have a problem drawing hands. There's no reason, or there's no it's not a surprise that AI has a problem with it because it's really hard. Hands and eyes, it's just really difficult. It's super unique. It's what makes us human, right? So there's a reason why the hands are really difficult to create. But I think that's going to be a thing of the past. I think at a certain point we'll just have to
yeah. I
it'll
think
just
we're
become
almost
less
there.
of a percentage. Yeah,
I see it less and less.
yeah.
I mean, the other thing too, hey Rory, so we got a couple questions, guys. Keep firing these in. We'll try to lightning through these really quick. Somebody else asked, I create both real and artistic. Can you have a p-value for both? No, it's just one value. But that's kind of what we were talking about. Like, does Midjourney know, right? Like that difference between what you're prompting for specifically and applying specific knowledge based on ranked images and liked images about that sort of niche or subject versus like this holistic thing. I think that's speculative, but I would think so. I don't know. But just one p-value. Sonia asks, while I'm rating the images, can I go to an image and upscale them? Basically want them in my archive.
I've actually tried that before, not any success. I've copied the prompt. That's really what I've done.
Yeah.
That's all you can do, I think.
All you can do, like, so if you're in rating images, I think it's like you hold command on a Mac and you click that image, it'll open a new tab for you with that image and the prompt. And then, yeah, you'll get the prompt and the image, right? But obviously you can't, create something one for one. So the best, or you can't even subtle vary it for that matter. So the best thing you could do is run that exact prompt or run that exact prompt with an image weight and see where you get.
Yeah, or screenshot it and use it as an SREF or an image weight and dial up all of it. So dial up image weight to 3, and hopefully you'll get something very similar. So it's a few different ways to try and go about hacking around that.
Yeah, let's see if we have anything else. How do I invite somebody to my private room? So all you're gonna do is when you're in the room, and probably this is a better visual. I'm sorry, man. I'm like,
let's see, using
your screen like hell here, but essentially you're just gonna grab that URL of the room. You're gonna send that to somebody. Now, again, I would expect this to get cleaner too. Like, it's just not a top priority. So you're going to send that URL, and then it's going to ask you for a password. You enter the password, and then you're in the private.
Yep. Pretty simple. Once you create this, then basically you open up into one of these things, and then you send the URL, drop the password, good to go. Let me see if they actually added something here. Nope, just leave room. All right. So yeah, that's pretty much the easy way to do it.
Yep.
What else we got?
Let's see what else we got. Real hands look weird in photos. Yes. Like, that's the point too, is like, I'm not necessarily even looking for perfect hands. It just needs to be believable, right? So like if I see something like this, no one's going to be diving in to see if like there's like, this fifth finger hanging out in between the two, like, or if you're that worried about it, right? Just go into Photoshop. Like their hands just look weird. They're a functional thing. Same with feet, right? Same with feet.
Totally. Image prompting works well for hands, oddly enough. Whenever you image prompt or I create an image of myself in there, because my hands are like prominently displayed in the source image, the hands, I like rarely have, 99% of the time, hands are perfect, which is weird. It looks even more perfect with the image prompt. So sometimes, and even a low image weight there can help. And utilizing, like I said, a good image prompt of hands can just like totally change the whole thing. So yeah, think about that. If you're ever having problem with getting someone's body in a structure format, like, oh, I want to do this specific yoga pose, which, has like arms bending behind the back, like it's going to be impossible for Midjourney to generate. Find a source image that has that.
Yes.
Utilize that as like a very subtle image weight. It'll like guide the image to get you there. So, someone riding a bull, someone, doing in like a archery position. Like, there's always so many like weird things. So that's always like a good starting point. Find an image that'll, just guide Midjourney to do the right thing for you.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, and there are some things that Midjourney just doesn't know what the hell it is. Like, I've had, like, I had a client like even 6 months ago that was looking for images of like excavators, right, digging up dirt. And you're thinking, okay, that's not going to be hard to find. You couldn't find it. Now you can, but now it doesn't know what like a metal recycling claw is. So like, you can play with all the synonyms of what people call it. And if it's still nothing, or even using the search functionality within Midjourney, that's another thing that I look for is it's like, has anybody else prompted for something like this? Because I want to know the language, the NLP of what that subject is or what the item is, or, whatever component I like, and then apply that to mine. Right. So I think that's another easy way to do that. The other thing I would just say, like, obviously we talk about experimentation a lot. I don't think enough people are using permutations. That's my rally cry. It's my rally cry. My rally cry. I think originally, Rory, I think you put me on those like way back in the day, if I remember correctly. But you have to use them. Yes, you burn fast hours. But if you're trying to really understand how Midjourney's working and how it's going to work for you, you need to run these variations of stylized, aspect ratio, different words, different colors, right? Because you can permutate permutate anything, right? So like you could, it could be a color of something. It could be somebody's ethnicity, somebody's age, their hair color, their eye, what they're wearing, all of those things. And so it takes a long time to do all this experimentation anyway. Do it at scale with permutations. It's just an easy way to do it. Yes, you're going to burn fast hours. Who cares?
I do it with just another quick tip on style codes too. This is random. Again, two things that I love to use. I don't know if everyone uses them: permutations and the repeat parameter. So like I use the repeat parameter all the time. Just --r and then number 1 through 10. Right. That's on the basic plan. You can go up to 40 if you want to, but I like to run stuff maybe 3 times. Just like --r3 and like get 3 different options for it. But style codes, it's great. You just do style random --r10. Bang, 10 new style codes. So you don't have to go like reprompt it again, things like that. Like there's just ways to make your little hacks to make your life easier. So you don't have to just always hit reprompt or copy paste or reuse and change the parameters, whatnot. And that, it's great to do the parameter or permutations on the parameters with multiple sets. So like I'll do that with, like, I want to do this with style weight and style version. So I'll do like style weight, 0, 200, 600, 1,000, and then SV 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, it'll generate 12 different options at a time, but I get it all done. So
exactly. And like I think that's critical too for like style codes. Yeah. Now, because you've got that style weight functionality, and there's always this balance that people are looking for within that style code of how much is it taking too much of that style and it's further away from my prompt versus incorporating just enough. So that's where you want to run, stylized permutations with the style weight permutations, right? Because you're going to get to your end result faster doing it. And it's worth the the fast hour, so to speak. So, I think, Rory, you got anything else, man? I think we're pretty good on questions. I think we're all caught up. People seem to be really thankful for today. So it looks like it was a good session. I'm glad to hear that. If there's anything that we missed, let us know. And also after the fact, we'll go back and look at those of you that wanted to be in that room. Rory and I will get that going and follow up with each of you on that too. Rory, anything else on your part?
One last little tidbit is blend your style codes. It's really fun. And by blending, I mean like generate something with one style code, generate something with another style code, take those 2 uniquely different style codes and use them as srefs. You don't have to use the style code when you do this. So create a new prompt, whatever, add those 2 images as srefs and like blend them. So it's fun to blend something that's super colorful, maybe super minimal, right? Or super colorful, super dark. See what happens. You just get really cool mashups and like really unique imagery. So that's for fun. Whoever wants to do that, fast hours waster. It's good, but it's good. It creates some cool stuff. So that's my last thing.
I don't see many people doing that either. I think that's something that I've seen you do quite a bit, but I haven't really seen other people do it. Again, people use this tool in different ways.
Yeah.
Got billions of style codes. Then you can even combine style codes, right? Like so it's silly. That's why I say, like, if you can find some styles that you like, save those things, man. I mean, you're going to use those time and time again. And again, there's not a better and faster way to drive the consistency and cohesiveness of the images across, maybe different subjects, which is, and doing that manually is hard to do. Let's just face it. So
totally.
Here, you want to take that one? We got one last question. How do you blend those?
So if you generate a style code, right, where it's just I use -- style random, that prompt comes out. Great. That's one style code. Now I create a new prompt and I do, it's -- style random. You get a second code. So you have 2 codes, right? But you have those images that correlate with the codes that you generated. So one's in one style, one's in the other. When you create that third prompt, basically you just take one of the images from the first style code and one of the images from the second style code, and you put them as style reference. So sref, 2 images in the same prompt. And you take out, if there's any sort of, style random in the prompt, just take that out, and then you can blend them. So if you have one that's like super photorealistic and you have one that's like way more artistic illustration based and you want to see what that would look like mashed up together, that's how you do it. You had one as one of the artistic images or the illustrated images, one of the photorealistic images as a style reference, put them both in the same prompt, let it run.
You got some pretty cool results on that from the one.
Crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Anything fast hour waster.
I mean, I'm game. I'm game.
Real.
I mean, yeah, let's do it.
It's what we do. it's
Let's do it.
basically my life. So,
hey guys, thank you for joining us. I mean, we're always super grateful for you guys taking an hour to join us. We love to do this if it's valuable, right? And if it's valuable, we'll keep doing this. So, thank you guys for joining us. If you guys have any other questions or follow-ups for us, shoot us a DM. We're both available on LinkedIn. Also, just quick shout out, but we both do professional work around Midjourney too, right? So if you've got things that you're trying to integrate into your full-time role, or you're trying to get a, quick workshop on something, or you want to train your team on something, we do some of that as well. So just a quick shout out there. Outside of that, guys, I hope you guys have a great day. We love joining you, and we'll talk again soon. We'll follow up with that room.
Yeah, and be sure to enjoy some real life. Midjourney's cool, but it's the summer. So yeah.
That's
right. Awesome, guys.
All right, y'all. We'll catch you guys next time.
All right. See ya.